All right, recording's on. All right, everybody, welcome to I guess this is the second meeting of the 2026 OWASP Top 10 for Large Language Models Update Project. And it's great to see everybody here. Um, let some more people in.
I got it, Steve, if you want to keep talking.
All
We'll keep an
right,
eye out.
cool. If you can do it, that's awesome. Um, so we are just a couple of days. We had the kickoff meeting a few weeks back, and just addressing the check question in the chat. There is a full replay of that. You can go find that on my LinkedIn. I'll drop a link. I'll drop a link to that in the chat a little bit later. But we've just entered sprint one. So all of that was really just precursor. And if you have seen the sprint plan, which is available in the Slack channel, you'll see the intent of this sprint is really to get us going with leads assigned who are building teams around each of the entries. The other interesting part about this phase is that, well, I do want to see us update all of the previous entries to be the best versions of themselves they can be. I think we're also open to the idea that we've completely missed some things or that there are completely new things. And the way that we did this last time was by running this a bit in parallel at the beginning, saying teams can clean up, modernize, improve entries any way that they see fit. But if you or a small group want to get together and do a write-up for something that is maybe a complete rewhack of something or something completely new, this sprint is the time to do that as well. And when we get to the end of the sprint, we'll go into a next sprint where we start evaluating all of these. And that 2 week period will give us the basis to start narrowing down. And a lot of the questions, do we merge two things? Do we drop some things? Do we make space for some new things? That will get addressed in the second sprint. So with that, Rock, you want to add some comments?
No, sorry about the confusion with regards to access to the repo. I copied over the permissions from the prior repo, figuring there's a method to the madness, and then just realized it'd be easier to make it public. So, hopefully that didn't cause too much delay, if any, on your end. I love seeing the activity in the individual work streams. Um, let's get at it.
All right, so maybe we just open up the floor for first for questions for people who are new to the project, or if maybe you're leading a work stream for the first time, or anything else. Floor's open for questions at this point about what we should be doing during the next couple weeks.
Rachel,
Rachel.
No, I did the polite thing and actually used the raise my hand thing for a change. So I just want to make sure. I'm sorry that I was running late. I all morning has been hopping from meeting to meeting for me. So I apologize if I'm asking something that's already been covered. I just want to make sure I understand if this is functionally working the way we've used GitHub and this activity in the past, that this GitHub repo should have all the submitted suggestions for changes. Like for me, right, I'm working with the prompt injection entry. This should have a collection of all the sort of submitted suggested changes. It sounds like Gavin, I'm not sure how many people are aware, but Gavin was part of like the first prompt injection. He was the major author of that first prompt injection entry, and he's reached out to me so that we can collaborate together on this version. So we're going to be meeting on Friday to look at this, but it sounds like I just want to check and make sure when I go into the repo, I'm going to see all the suggested changes working the same way. I look at all the suggestions, see which ones are basically like the same, because we have this a lot, right? A lot of people sort of have the same suggestion, maybe worded slightly differently. And we're making then a sort of final version that's a collection of the submitted changes that we believe have researched backed evidential reasons to be an update to that entry. And we're just then going to have sort of the combined finalized update within the GitHub repo as well. Is that right?
Yeah, so let me try and play this back the way that I'm thinking that this works. Although the first thing I will say is that you all as entry leads, you have a lot of leeway in what you do between now and the end of the sprint. You're running your sprint with your team. Um, the one entry that I'm leading, we're having a lot of discussions on the Slack channel and people are getting their ideas out there. Um, if you want to have a Google Docs stood up somewhere that people are commenting on, or if you want to have a markdown document that people are commenting against, knock yourself out. But the intent is by the end of the sprint, which would be uh, a week from Monday, you would have your team's new entry completed in a markdown file in the repo. And you, as the entry lead, are the one who, at the end of the day, owns the pen. So you can have all sorts of debate and things with your team at the end of the week, but the deliverable is not a team deliverable because I don't know how to do that. It's the entry lead's responsible for making sure that something gets up there that is coherent.
Okay, gotcha. When I went into, maybe I don't understand the organization. So when I went into the GitHub repo, I saw the 2025 and 2026 folders and I saw the entry for each. I just didn't see, like last time we did this, there was like a whole bunch of like sort of GitHub submitted like recommended edits,
Like
right? Like
PRs,
huh?
PRs, pull requests.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
I was
nobody
like
submitted one
literally
yet.
looking at line by line submitted changes people were suggesting.
Yeah, I haven't seen one submitted yet, so that's why you haven't seen it
So
there. And that's
I,
probably
th
a
I think
function that
some of this again will, in my opinion, this is up to entry leads. Like if you want to take a version of the 2025 one, copy it over somewhere and tell people submit PRs against it, you could
Well,
run it that
I'm not,
way. That
it, that's totally fine if it, we didn't, set it up that way. I just, A, didn't want to make sure I was missing it, if
yeah.
that's the
yeah.
way it was.
So
And B, understand if that was the expectation, if how we're going to manage it. It sounds like we can do it in a Google Doc or something else. Where, so I guess my two questions there are, where is the feedback that we did get? Because I think we got it mostly in that survey format. And my second question is, uh, if do we consider the input period to be closed unless I specifically say, here's the document, make inline edits or make a pull request, or should we expect more is going to come in?
So I think what we did was we took the broad pulse of the community.
Okay.
And I'm happy to repost the links to the survey results and all those kinds of things. I'll put those up, kind of reconnect those in the Slack channel for everybody.
Yeah, the
Uh,
ones that I saw that you posted, and maybe I missed the more detailed one, but the one that I saw you post before was like kind of a general summary of everything. I was hoping like maybe there was ones that are just, here's everything that was specifically suggested about the prompt injection entry or
well,
comments we were receiving. Do you know what I'm saying?
um, the thing I will do, because it's a pretty compact little nugget, is I will
Okay.
post the raw survey results.
Okay.
And then feel free to drop that into your favorite large language model and say, hey, pair me out everything related to prompt injection, pull that out however you want.
Perfect.
Um, but I think take what you can from that, use that as fodder with your team on your channel to say, okay, not all feedback is created equal. Some of it you can
Right.
say, duly noted, thank you, but we choose to disagree with that or ignore that. Other things you're like, hey, this is great. Let's figure out how to get that into the new version of the document.
Got it. Okay,
So
gotcha. Because yeah,
I will
I saw
repost
in
the
the yeah, because like I saw in the sprint plan and project timelines a link to LinkedIn that was like kind of the cumulative results. But if I can get like
yeah.
the raw data, so I can like you said, pull out the things that are specific to prompt injection and just look at that with Gavin, I think that would be super helpful. And then do if I wanted to uh make it so people could submit a pull request for prompt injection, do I just fork that off into my repo and then propose it in the channel, or should I be forking this off into a Gen AI security project GitHub repo? If
I
that makes
think it could
sense.
just be a branch in the current repo.
A
I don't think we
branch,
have to
okay.
overcomplicate it, or else now we're dealing with many different issues.
Yeah, that's
Um,
why I wanted to
yeah, I think a
yeah,
branch
make
in the
sure.
current repo is fine. And just I want to be super clear that the entries that you see in the 2026 photo right now are just the clone from 2025 as a
Yeah,
starting
yeah,
point
I
for people.
realized
Okay.
that. Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
was kind of our working draft version is kind of what I saw. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think just a branch and then a PR would be good because then the like you said, the PR will allow us to see kind of the line by line changes. And also for any new entries too. Same thing.
And do I oh, I might have to so if I do I so I need to sign in to do I guess do I have the permission to do a branch?
Yeah, it's public, so you should be able to.
Okay. All right, great.
And if not, honestly, I don't even know if a branch is critical. I mean, we're not modifying code, right? At the end of the day, it's just markup down files that are getting updated. Like a PR, even we might even be overcomplicating with a branch. Just straight PR might be fine.
Yeah, and you don't have to make
Okay.
branches public either. They could be your local, and then you do a pull request in main, and then that's
Yeah,
ours. That just gives you separation of work, so you don't kind of follow up.
And if
So
you're
I
not,
can just tell people to submit a PR to the main. We don't want need to do a branch.
yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. Yeah, because
I just wanted to
then
make sure.
it'll be up to probably Steve and I to merge it.
Okay. That's good.
Oh, cool.
there was a question. It says, is there a markdown file or anything covering acceptable criteria for adding a new entry? No,
Yes.
there is, well,
No, there's a template of what we want to
there's a
see as an
template which is
entry.
the form for a new entry,
Oh, yeah.
but
Sorry,
there are
sorry,
no
sorry,
rules about what you can submit. That is the intent. If
sorry.
you want to submit vulnerabilities from Martian radiation, you are entitled to do that at this phase. There's going to be no restriction on you submitting a new entry. However, it will get reviewed and voted on by the larger community. And if the larger community does not think Martian radiation is interesting, it will get dropped out the back. But at this phase, if you feel strongly that there's something that is missing, go ahead and do that. If you're, um, you know, if you believe two of the entries should be merged, you can advocate for that on both of those Slack channels. You can discuss with those leads. We're not going to merge them yet, though, um, unless the two leads agree to a priori that they both want to do that. And I'm open to discussing that. But if you just think you have an opinion that two of them should be merged, go ahead and voice that. But that's probably something that will happen in the next sprint as we go into kind of really commentary and down selecting. Let's see, we got lots of hands raised, so we're going to go through an order. So, Vinny.
Um, oh, there we are, unmuted. Hi. Great to see all of you again. I just wanted to be really clear about what our deliverable is at the end of next week. Understood that however we get there is sort of up to us, but is a deliverable then a PR to main with the updated, or is there like a special branch for all of the potential 2026s that would then go into main? How do you want us to do that?
I think just against Maine, Rock.
Yeah, I think just against man is fine. Right. And
Okay.
if we end up with 100 PRs, we'll review 100 PRs and figure out if we need to merge a couple of the PRs together, right? Because they're like significant overlap or whatever. We'll figure that out.
But
And
I
if it
think
gets too
for
big for
the
Steve and I, we may recruit others.
if you're a lead on the existing top 10 though, there should be one canonical version of that that comes from you as a lead or as the co-leads that you guys push up, and that those are the updates to the existing top 10.
Right.
Different rules for the other folder. And Rock, we should be clear, do we have separate folders for new submissions and updates?
Do not. I should add that.
Okay, make sure that there's a clear folder and we can point people at, if you're submitting a new one, dump it here. Versus if you're, working with your team, if you're an entry lead for an existing one, that should have a special location we drop that. So Rock, if you want to set that up and then post that to the channel for clarity for people.
We'll be done before the end of this
Yeah,
call.
we like the way I did it in prompt injection last time was I kind of went through all of the PR requests and pulled out, there was a lot, like I said, that was duplicate suggestions. I pulled out everything, and then when I did the final submission as the lead entry, I had a bunch of, using Markdown commented out sections where I said, this was taken from this particular poll request from this user, this was taken, right? So there was some traceability
Mhm.
in that finalized submission where you could say, you know, like I went through and I said, this one was rejected because it was technically a duplicate of this one. This one was rejected because technically it falls under supply chain. This one was implemented for these following reasons. And so like the final one as a lead entry last time, I just used a bunch of comments, hashing out the comments as if it was code, so that there was at least transparency and how I as a lead came to a decision about what did get put into the final version and what was left. So
Cool.
that
Thank
helps
you.
anybody.
All right. If I'm saying this correct, Amir?
Yeah, hi Steve. So most of my questions have been already answered from the chat itself. So
Okay.
the only thing which I will add is the idea was regarding artifact and model integrity, which I thought maybe need to be democratically discussed if we require a different entry for that. But for now, I have generated a PR to add this point in supply chain entry itself.
Great. All right. Sumit.
Yeah, hi everyone. Sumit here, lead for LLM O4. A quick question. I've went through the GitHub repo line by line. I saw the template.md. Just want to make sure, around the guidelines for using that template, how strictly do we need to adhere to that? Or is there some room for, being creative here? I know, we want it to be standardized across all the 10 entries, but I just want to see, what are the guidelines there?
I would
Tell
prefer.
me,
Go ahead.
tell me why you think you want to change it.
No, I was just thinking that, if we could add sections like, threat modeling and stuff, again, that can be, broken down and be into one of the 5 sections that we have. But I was, thinking along more of those lines.
Here's what I would say is I'm open to the idea that we should change the template, but we would change it for everyone. So if you really feel like every entry should have a threat modeling section, not commenting either way on that, but I would propose that to the group in the Slack channel and we could have a discussion around it. What I would suggest though is don't go creating new sections for just your entry.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they're going to be uniform. The advantage of this is these things are cookie cutter and that they fall into a similar structure.
So I'm
Makes
with
sense. Okay.
I'm with Simi on LLM04, and one of the things I don't want to expand the template, but we have example scenarios that are basically a sentence or two sentences that can they be expanded because can we
Oh,
show something?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I know 2025 is the first round, right? But I'm like, I can do all these things and show all these things. I don't want to step on the red team's stuff, but there's things that we can actually flesh out.
yeah. Here's what I'll say just in terms of thinking about length. The original version of this document was, you know, 20, 30 pages, like the whole thing. It was pretty tight. And that was the advantage is you could sit on a train ride and you could read the whole thing. Some of the iterations that we did internally ballooned to kind of double the size and it started to feel unwieldy. And we wound up having to add some phases at the end where we went in and got real critical about stuff. So I would say, just in terms of how you're optimizing, I think that we certainly know more stuff now than we did 18 months ago last time we revved this. So we'll want to add new things. Think about though, if there are other things that want to fall out, we don't want to double the length of the document.
Right.
Um, this
Or-
is not a replacement for a, you know, threat modeling guide or a
Right.
red teaming guide. We don't want to teach people how to red team. This is the top 10 list.
I'm thinking in the
And
terms of a tester of an LLM system, not necessarily someone who needs to break it and prove anything, but okay, so we're looking at data model poisoning. Here's a few more, I guess, detailed examples, not necessarily the entire break, but here's where I would
yeah,
start. Here's what I
I,
expect. Here's,
one of the
actual
things I would
example.
say with things like the examples is typically we have had like, hey, here's the example, here's a short bit about it, and a link to, maybe a broader article, you know, a CVE, a whatever, for if you want to go deeper. Don't feel like you have to recreate that because, we could do 5-page write-ups on particular incidents. What we do want to do is, hey, here's a smattering of the kind of things you're going to encounter under this category, maybe with links to where to learn more.
Or even hinting at expected and actual comparisons, right? That's kind of, I would think that I don't need 10 pages to tell you I expect this kind of behavior. I got this kind
Sure.
of behavior, right? It's the
Yeah.
testing kind of mantra.
And I would say the other thing with the examples is, a big part of this is more modern examples. The current examples in there, you're not going to find anything newer than 2024.
Gotcha.
And we all know the world is very different right now. State of the art was a pre-MCP RAG bot the
Right.
last time that we did this, and now it's open claw agents and God knows what else. So the examples should
The
be,
world is rag now, right?
yeah, I mean that's the advanced case is now the lowest common denominator, and the new advanced case is stuff nobody built yet. So we do want to modernize those. Sahil?
Yeah, so thanks, co-lead for number 10. Some of the questions had been answered. In short, to my understanding, deliverable is at the end of the day a PR to the GitHub, and however we get there is up to us, like a Google Doc that we can work with folks on. I think the remaining question I had was just on how we would track contributions at this stage. So, for example, like let's say I put together a Google Doc and ask the community to contribute, add any comments. Should we track, for example, who contributed to that doc and fed into that PR in a way, or just wanted to get a sense of how it's normally done with top 10?
Here's what I'd say, and I will tell you, when we were originally doing the top 10, I drew a super hard line on this. The original top 10 documents didn't include contributor lists, anything like that. We had, we had a self-service place on the wiki where you could list yourself as a contributor if you felt you wanted to do that. Scott has put together a more formal version of that where you can list yourself as a contributor on the website. There's a form to fill in, but I'm not going to list everybody who contributed to a thing here. I am all in favor of people putting on their LinkedIn that they contributed to this, that they worked on the project, but we're not going to spend a ton of time arbitrating who contributed, who didn't, making lists of it. It's not that kind of thing. And I've seen way too much drama over people like saying I contributed and I didn't get listed. And it's just like, no, we're not doing that.
For transparency purposes, that's why I was explaining the finalized version that I worked on last time. I used comments. None of that ended up into the final publication, but you could historically go and look
Yes.
into the GitHub because, right, it's open, it's transparent. And that was largely so if people literally messaged me directly and said, I want to understand why my wording was not used and someone else's was, or, whatever, the situation was, that I had a record to say, yes, I looked at yours was very similar. And so in this comment, I said, we combined language from these three people's submissions. And so I did that mostly for transparency's sake in terms of decision making, but also for me to have my own reference if people came back to me later and kind of wanted to understand. There was even situations where people would submit something to the prompt injection entry that actually belonged to another entry, but it was really good research and it was a really good point. So I would contact the other entry lead and be like, hey, this is in here under a suggestion for mine, but you might want to look at this link of this research that somebody offered. And sometimes that would be, ultimately the way their feedback would get incorporated. And at least now I had, record of that I could tell that person, like, yeah, your feedback wasn't part of the prompt injection entry, but if you look, they did list the research that you pointed out in this other entry as well. So I don't know if that helps how we did it before.
Yeah.
I think that clarity helps. Just wanted to know how we normally approach it. But thanks.
Hey, just to sum up some stuff that's in the chat, especially because I don't think the chat gets preserved with the recording, but there's a lot of questions about the kinds of things you can cite in your entries. Does it have to be a CVE entry? Can it be a research paper? The answer to both of those is yes. It can also be a New York Times article. It could be a blog post. It just has to be informative, and you have to think that it adds to the educational value of this. I'll just go on record here. This is not an academic publication, so we're not citing peer-reviewed research. This is not some kind of formal method. This is an educational document. So if you want to link to something that's educational and on topic for your entry, go for it. Andy.
Hey folks, I guess elaborating a bit further on the comment earlier around kind of the length of entries and kind of referencing other information. Yeah, again, certainly from previous years, that's something we focused quite a lot on. When it comes to kind of referencing other kind of blog articles, what opportunity is there for the contributors and or entry leads to be able to publish more information in the form of a blog post on the Gen AI OWASP blog itself? Is that an option available? Kind of do partner articles that kind of go into a bit more of an explanation and detail, enabling us to keep the entries themselves a little bit more kind of snappy and clean.
I guess first off, I'll make a comment. I think Scott very much likes the idea of having people publishing blogs on the Gen AI site. So if you and your team have something you want to contribute there, I think there's a form to do that. Talk to Scott Clinton if you're not sure or you can't find it. My gut says I would avoid sort of writing giant off the side research things that your entry depends on people going to read. Like it's cheating
Yeah.
if you say like I want to double the length of this, but I'm just gonna put it off in a link over here and make you go read it. On the other hand, you adding, we publish an entry and then you want to put up an article that goes more deeply into an aspect of it. To me, that sounds like nothing but upside. So I think those could be really great ideas and adding supplementary deeper material on an example or a mitigation or a concept. Sounds like a great idea to me.
All right, nice. And another one, if I may. I I really liked your original post, Steve. I think it was on LinkedIn from a month or two back, kind of calling out the launch of this piece of work, the survey, and all of that great stuff. Um, I've not seen an equivalent of that for the current stage that we're at. So I have struggled a little bit in being able to kind of promote where we are at the moment to try and encourage others to kind of get involved and participate in this activity, which was one of the reasons why I kind of poked and prodded around the availability of the GitHub repo, because that kind of timeline seemed to be like
So
the latest information about what's coming next. And is there anything else that's available or that is coming soon that could help us kind of encourage more people to get involved?
let me find the thing, because yes, there's always a thing. Um, that Fat fingers. Not there. Not there. Okay. Let me make sure that everybody has seen this guy. So I'm going to drop it in the chat here. Back chat. So yeah, if people have not seen this one, this is the where are we, what are we doing right now and for the next 6 weeks or so document. Um, does this address the question?
You're not sharing, Steve.
I
Oh,
didn't mean to
sorry,
share,
the
but I
link.
could. We could do that too.
No, sorry, I
Um,
didn't see the link in the chat. I thought you were sharing.
I think the only thing that is missing, Steve, is then the um, where to go next, and maybe it's as simple as a link to the Gen AI contributions page, just so that folks know, okay, right. If I've got something that I want to add to this, I need to join the Slack. I need to join these specific channels. But otherwise, yeah, I think this probably covers that off quite nicely.
yeah. Um, I think that the Gen AI contributors page, that's always a good reference for people to go make sure that they're able to get into the Slack and find the community. If you're trying to get people on board for the current phase of this project, right? So we have completed this pre-sprint zero phase. We are now in the early part in week one of sprint one. So existing entries updated, new entries proposed, deliverables, fully updated versions of the existing top 10, and a repo for the new entries. As discussed on the call, Rock's going to make sure that there's clear folders for where the existing ones go and where the new ones go. And then just reviewing, then we go into a 2-week review, community review and voting phase where we get everybody's feedback. So, don't feel like you're welded into a box at the end of this phase. That is the place to get some things in. If there are some things that are open, make sure those comments get out into the discussion. And then sprint 3 will be where we kind of are doing refining, merging, real cleanup on these things to make sure that they're great. And then we go into a final voting and selection phase. So there are a few iterations here. We get a chance to do this, but if we can get um, meaningful versions of these done by the end of this 2-week sprint phase that we're in right now, we'll be in great shape.
Yeah. And I have already dropped a link in the chat for the new folder to put in new entries.
All right. I see no more hands. That's a good sign. I see some comments here, but they mostly seem to be affirmative. All right. Archie's got his hand up.
Yeah, hi. One question regarding agentic, and because now agentic is the new AI. So, I mean, for all the entries, where do we draw the line? Because OWASP has a separate agentic attacks, framework as well. So when we are framing our entries, where do we draw the line?
All right. Great question. We've written a fair bit about this in the early phases of the discussion, and I will try and find some of this here. But actually, in that page I dropped with the the sprint plan. There is the survey results, the updated charter. The charter document, which I will link to here, I think is really one of the key items here. So just as a reminder, when this all started, there was only one document, which was this top 10 list. So when we wrote the original charter, it was a charter that was focused on producing this document. In the meantime, we expanded out to producing multiple documents. We created sub-teams. We created an umbrella project, which is the Gen AI project. And so the agentic list and this list both sit under that super project. We have people who've participated in both. Rock was active in the agentic one, as were some of the rest of you. And, just in terms of structure, people like Scott Clinton and myself and John, who was the lead for the agentic stuff overall, are all on a board that sits across all of that. But I think I'll let Rock try and phrase it, but I think Rock really came up with a phrase that sort of captured how do we think about this as, sort of these larger agentic threats versus the core threats as a guideline. Rock, do you want to try and paraphrase that?
Yeah, I think it was something along the lines of when the LLM stops being a component of the application and now can actually is connected to tools and calls and can actually actuate on things, right? I actually gave a presentation last week, and the analogy I gave was the LLM's a brain, and an agent is the brain with hands, arms, legs, hands, feet, and a credit card, right?
Data
So
is our senses. Data.
yeah.
So I look at data and model, not agentic at all. I can poison my data and just feed it, recurring information that, the model becomes, tampered with. Not involved with an agent at all. Agentic to me is very specific. So
What I will say here is going back to that charter document that I dropped in here, there's a substantial section in here about exactly this question, which is the relation to agentic security. It really kind of goes into where we're centralizing, what's the top 10 for LLMs versus what's the top 10 for agentic. There will be overlap, and that's understood and intentional. The top 10 agentic list, which was obviously created later, references down to the 2025 LLM list in several places, as it should. it doesn't want to have to re-explain prompt injection. It just says, prompt injection over here, go read that. If we want to talk about, identity abuse because it's relevant to one of the entries, don't reinvent the wheel. Just point up to, ASI02 and go here, go to that. So it's perfectly relevant for us to reference up to concepts where it's like, hey, this is the entryway to these other agentic cases, links over here. And I think that's a fine thing to do. All right. Anybody else?
Maybe one quick one. What's the schedule for these meetings? I know there's a question over bi-weekly, weekly.
What do you guys want to do? You guys want to shoot for every other week, one meeting per sprint?
Feels like, given that the timelines are pretty short, it might be worth having weekly, just to kind of check in on progress, because otherwise we won't have another discussion until after we've kind of finalized our first round of entries.
I guess the thing I will say,
That may be because it's early
these-
stage.
Yeah.
Like, I want another meeting. I got 5 of them this week.
I think there is a meeting overload thing for some of us. The other one is, as democratic as this seems, these meetings are not democratic. About 2/3 of the world gets excluded from them by time zone. You get excluded by them if you're unlucky enough to have a work conflict, any of these other things. This is high bandwidth. This is great. We will take this recording and we will cross post it so that people can view it, but people didn't get to, we know there are 15 people on this call and there are 100 people who are participating on the Slack channels. So main decisions should get made on the Slack channels. The meetings are a good checkpoint, and this was high bandwidth and hopefully useful for people. But I would suggest we keep it at once every 2 weeks. And as entry leads and as leaders on this project, we should focus on, the way to get maximum inclusion is through doing this on Slack.
Okay, that sounds fair.
Yeah, and feel free
I
to
guess
have calls with your teams, right? If
Yeah,
that's
you
the case.
guys can set up, use the off weeks to get your teams together if you can. Please do, by all means.
Yeah. On the topic of kind of getting involvement on the Slack, I don't know whether it's just me, but I've been quite surprised at how actually little interaction there's been in our discussion channel so far, given like the initial number of interest. Is that just me? Anyone got any good tips on how to encourage a bit more interaction going? How to get stuff out of people's brains?
So having done this a few times and also just having freshly had to do that this time, you have the number of times somebody goes, I want to help. How do I help? And then then you're like, why am I not drowning in actual help here? Is because people need to be led on this. So if you're an entry lead, you're leading, go in and don't say, what do you guys think? Ask leading questions. Hey, this has come up as an issue. What are the opinions on either side of this? Post Slack polls, poke people, prod people, put up a draft early, get people to comment on the draft. Anything to give it form, because otherwise people just deer in the headlights. I don't know where to start. But if you
And the
go
stealthy
in,
way is
post,
you either misspell or misstate, and people will jump in to correct you.
yeah, but
I don't know why. It's just like somebody, hey, I'm like, all right, so you are alive, you exist, and you're reading Slack now.
post an article that's relevant. The number of times and somebody posts a AI security related article in the news these days is like 26 times a day. Find one that's relevant to your topic, post it in your channel, get people talking.
Yeah, I started with a few of those questions, and yeah, it's been a little bit crickets with the exception of a couple of folks on this call, so thank you. But yeah, I'll keep doing more of that then. That's helpful. Thanks.
Yeah. I will say, one of the things about this is, going back to that first top 10 list, I say confidently there were hundreds of people that touched it, but there were really only about 15 people who really wrote anything. People comment on the Slack, people vote in the polls. Those are all important and they make the thing more durable, but at the end of the day, it's a small number of people who are going to make this happen. And that's why we do have a lead for each of these who's going to be accountable to make sure there's a draft. So get any input that you can from your team. Take it all in liberally, ask leading questions, poke them for their opinions and comments. But at the end of the day, you own getting another draft, and then there will be that comment period that comes later, and some people will be more confident commenting on a posted thing than staring at a blank page.
That's fair. Cool. Thank you.
All right, folks. Rock, you got anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No, really appreciate the efforts, and I don't know why my camera gets jacked every time I turn it back on. Sorry, I'm meeting over here.
Yeah.
Really appreciate the efforts. Really appreciate the enthusiasm, right? And I'll take a small but mighty team over a big but scattered team any day. And looking forward to all the amazing work. I'm super looking forward to the new candidate entries. I have a feeling we're going to see everything from data mining to machine learning to RAG and everything in between. I mean, hell, I mean, graph. I could usually see someone putting in something about a graph database. So
Yep.
it'll be super interesting to see
Breaking out
how
of
everything falls.
sandboxes, I think, is the new hotness.
What's that? What's that, Mark?
Anthropic, and I don't know, Google, one of these, breaking out of sandboxes, agents escaping their
Mythos.
sandboxes.
Yeah, Mythos will not be an entry. Mythos will not be its own entry.
I'm
confident. I'm confident in vetoing that right now.
It's just
I
gonna
kind
create
of
the
like
issues for all
sandbox
of our next
escaping
entries.
though.
Yeah,
that's what I'm
escaping.
thinking. Like, it's an agent that takes on its own kind of sentience, and oh crap.
Yeah. All right, people, this is exciting. Thanks for all the interaction. Great questions, great comments. I think we're off to a good start. Lots of work to do, next week and a half, but thanks again for everybody's efforts. I will post recordings and some notes in the next couple days on the Slack channel. I'm in Vegas at the Google conference, but after I get home, at least by early next week, I'll get that all cross-posted. But in the meantime, you all know what you need to do. And I will, though, go and repost some of those links to the charter, and I will dump the full archive of the survey data so that you and your teams can pull that apart any way you want.
Awesome.
See you later,
Be well,
folks.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.